Salut, welcome to Object Pronouns. This is a very complicated subject, so we're going to break it down in two videos. This first one is just going to be about recognizing what they mean in a sentence. We will use some vocabulary like subject, verb, object, direct object, indirect objects, and pronouns because those all help shorten our sentences, and we'll see them often. And again, we just want you to recognize what they mean. So we're going to start in English with the subject. The subject of the sentence is that person, place, thing, or idea that is being, doing, or having. So in our sentence, Jim sends Dwight a fax. Jim is the person doing the action, and that can be replaced with the pronoun he. The verb is the action of the sentence. So it's the being, the having, the feeling. Jim sends Dwight a fax. He is sending, which is the verb of a sentence. Now, some students get confused because it's not always this super big action. It can be having or feeling or being. So Jim has a sense of humor. Oh, he's having. Has is a verb. Dwight is afraid. Being is a verb, so he is the verb of our sentence. So knowing those two, we can figure out what the direct object is. The direct object of the sentence is simply the thing that receives the action of the verb. It's not the sender of the verb. It's not the subject of the verb. It is the receiver of the verb. And it receives directly. There's nothing blocking it. There's no prepositions in between. It receives directly. So if I want to figure out what the direct object of a sentence is, all I have to do is use the verb and add who or what. So Jim sends what? A fax. A fax is the direct object of that sentence. Jim has what? Oh, and it can be replaced with it. Jim has what? A sense of humor. And that is the object. And it also can be replaced with it. He has it. And notice the it can go at the end of our phrase in English. This is not similar in French. You can't put the it afterwards. And then, of course, careful because being is a linking verb. There are several linking verbs that do not take objects at all. They're what we call intransitive. So there will be no direct object. Now, indirect objects cannot receive directly the action. There's something blocking them, like a preposition. So to figure out what they are, instead of asking just who or what, we say to whom or to what, and that's how we find the indirect object. So Jim sends Dwight a fax. He sends to whom? To Dwight. And him can be replaced as well with to him. And we can do this in French too with stressed pronouns as well as the indirect object pronouns. So we can put it at the end of our sentence if we want to still make it a little shorter. Jim's wife gives a kiss to an actor. To whom? An actor. And that can be replaced with to him as well. Okay, so now let's look at that en français, those same examples. If you see a sentence that looks like Jim l'a envoyé à Dwight, we know that that is a direct object. And the meaning of these is me, you. Either of these is like he, him, her, or it, us, y'all, and them. Okay? So when I see Jim l'a envoyé à Dwight, I don't want my reader to think that this is the, because I see that although English has the structure subject, verb, object, where the object is after the verb, remember how he sends it to him, sends it. Well, French, they can do this thing where we put that object in front of the verb. So if I see a verb and something that looks like an object, I know that it's either a direct or indirect object. So here I know that l'apostrophe is a direct object because this is my list and that it's in front of the action and that those are my pronouns. So then what could l'apostrophe mean? He sends what? A fax. So if I want to deconstruct or reconstruct that whole sentence, I know that it means he sent a fax to Dwight. He sent it to Dwight. Now, indirect object in French basically mean to me, to you, to her, to him, to it, to us, to y'all, to them. So when I see these sentences, Jim lui envoie un fax, or Jim envoie un fax à lui. Now, this is a stressed pronoun, not an indirect object pronoun, but we can do that. Or elle lui donne un bisou. I can deconstruct it in the same way. So he sent to whom or to what? Oh, that's right. It was to Dwight. So the whole sentence would be Jim envoie à Dwight un fax. Elle lui donne un bisou. Oh, yeah. Elle donne un bisou à lui is also possible. So à qui? Oh, à un acteur. Donc, la femme de Jim donne un bisou à un acteur. I hope we're getting this. So again, our direct object pronouns are placed before the verb. These things don't mean it. They mean me, you, him, her, it, us, you, them. And we have to be careful because sometimes indirect objects are in English are actually direct objects in French. So some students get confused when they're using something like regarder. They say, oh yeah, in English we say I was looking at the computer. But in French we don't need the at. That is not necessary because just like we're translating one word to another, there's some changes. And sometimes those changes are the types of prepositions needed. We don't need at for regarder. And let's take a look at a couple examples that I've seen students make some errors with before. So if we see Ray, les, cherche, I know that les is a direct object pronoun because when you use chercher, you don't say in French to look for. That for is already included in the verb. So what is she looking for? She looks for them, these direct things. So elle cherche les pièces de rechange, right? She's looking for these things to exchange. Oh, yes. And I wanted to show you what this looks like with the negation. So, Anne-Carpute, if you haven't seen, he's her, what she turns in these pièces de rechange for. But il ne la paye pas bien. And when I see this la, I'm thinking, okay, this is a direct object. He doesn't pay what? He doesn't pay, and it's feminine. Maybe her? He doesn't pay her well. It's not les pièces de rechange, because it's not les. He doesn't pay for them well. He doesn't pay her well. And then pas go around both of these. So that direct or indirect object pronoun is now kind of attached to the verb. It's very cool. All right, so Ray les attend. We know les is them. So who would she be waiting for? Her parents. Is les. So Ray attend ses parents. Sometimes we also have the reverse thing where we have a direct object in English. It's going to take an indirect object in French. So when we in English say something suits, the French would say suit too. So let's look at some examples of those because if it becomes indirect in French, it's going to need an indirect pronoun. So for example, normally in English we say, well, that pleases me. Well, in French we have to say it pleases to me. So when I see lui, ça lui plaît, I know lui means to him. So, ça plaît à lui, ça plaît à Willy Wonka. Or, we see ce me plaît or ce te plaît. Well, those things, if we break them down, that means ça plaît à moi or ça plaît à toi. And if you remember, s'il te plaît, s'il vous plaît, those both mean please, if it is pleasing to you. Okay, so convient is really one where I see my students getting confused with because it means suits. If I see il lui convient, it's suiting to him. Oh, we're talking about le gilet de Paul convient à Finn. It's the jacket of Paul is fitting for Finn. If we say il leur ressemble, oh, we could break that down into oh, il ressemble à eux. They resemble them. Ah, il ressemble à leurs animaux. All right, so I'm hoping this all is getting familiar. We're understanding how to process this because there are some verbs that need an indirect object because they're followed by an a, and we have to pay attention to which verbs are require which preposition. So we can teach to someone to do something, but we can also demand to someone of doing something. And so those might change how we're going to use indirect or direct objects. So let's review. Direct objects answer that question, who, what. And the pronouns do not sound right after the verb. We have to put them in front of the verb, and those are included here. Now, indirect objects answer the question to whom or to what. And you can use a stress pronoun after the verb sometimes, but the indirect objects are located here. So the question is, ça veut dire quoi? Can you figure out what these things mean? If so, you've mastered what we've tried to cover today. Merci et à bientôt.